40 days after Easter, Jesus and his remaining disciples went to a mountain, probably Mount Olivet or the Mount of Olives, near Jerusalem. There he blessed them, told them to wait for the Holy Spirit, and then departed the earth by rising into heaven, a momentous event that we call Ascension. Usually, Ascension images have a heavenly perspective with angels looking down, welcoming him, an earthly perspective with disciples looking up, or both. There is usually a cloud, a wind gust, or a banner near Jesus, signaling the ascending movement. These images are inspiring me for how I can add ascension to my resurrection village scene. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a very simple background mountain out of plaster. And I'm also going to make a removable platform that my Christ figure can stand on top of for ascension. Note, I am going to make my mountain a little taller than any Jerusalem mountain would be, and that way I can reuse it in my other village displays. First off, you'll want to figure out the size of your background mountain. This is completely up to you on the height and the width. Be mindful of the measurements of your structure. I do suggest having your mountain at least double the height of one character piece and the depth of no more than a few inches. I also suggest making your mountain higher than any other village building or landform. So if you've made the upper room, tomb, Golgotha, make your mountain slightly taller than those pieces. Make it the tallest form in your village. I'm going to sketch out the basic shape of my mountain, what it'll look like from the front onto a piece of paper, or several pieces of paper. I told you mine was going to be a little bit large. Once I have my sketch, I'm going to cut it out, and I'm going to trace it onto a piece of foam board. Now I've got two separate pieces that I'm going to work on. The shape of the mountain from the front, and then a base piece, which is end to end, left to right, and how deep the mountain will be. Notice how my back frame and my base frame corners align. This will be very important once you start plastering. And sorry my camera doesn't capture all of this. It's just a big mountain. I'm connecting the back and the base together with painter's tape. I'm then going to take bubble wrap, roll it, and insert it into the inside of my form. The trick will be to have the bottom of your mountain thicker with the bubble wrap and then gradually narrow it up towards the tip of your mountain peak. This is a method I developed and is definitely tried and true, although it looks rather rough. Now we're going to plaster on a shell, which will help strengthen the mountain and hold up the more decorative molding plaster I'll add later. For this, I'm using paper towels, 1 part plaster of Paris and 1 part water. I'm going to dampen the paper towels, dip them in the plaster mix, and then lay down the sheets on top of the form. The first layer always looks really bad and it doesn't want to stay put. Just keep going and add 2 or 3 layers to form your shell. Once the form is covered with this shell, let it dry for about 8 hours. It's still going to be damp, but it's pretty hard. I'm going to trim off any rogue pieces of the shell with my hand. Now, I usually will remove the bubble wrap under my forms when it's dry, but since this piece is particularly tall and narrow, I'm going to leave the bubble wrap inside, and now I'm going to make my molding plaster following my favorite recipe. I'm making a double batch over and over and over again until I'm done, since I'm not sculpting out anything intricate. I'm literally slapping the stuff on there as quickly as possible. To plaster the bottom, I'm just laying down a layer on top of saran wrap or plastic wrap over a glass cutting board and pressing the mountain down on top of it, and I'm running my hands along the corners to connect it to the front and the back. And I'm also adding more molding plaster to the corners. Corners are really weak on mountains, so just be sure that you get extra plaster there. For mountains, I add texture by a technique I've termed splatting. I know, it sounds messy, and it totally is really messy. That's why I plaster outside. I'm literally throwing plaster bits at the front at an angle. Splatting has been the only way I can get this varied texture, and it just works for me. Once I've splatted to my heart's content, I'm going to wait about 10 minutes and then press down the splats gently just to make sure that they'll stick. Inevitably, you'll lose some splats, but it's gonna be okay. Be really careful when handling as it's really, really heavy. Watch out for those corners. They're going to be extra heavy and also can bend or break really easy. I'm going to let my molding plaster layer dry completely. The mountain will be the largest item in my resurrection village, so I want it to be able to blend in some of the other components. I'm going to add some Golgotha brown at the bottom, some beige that I used in my upper room, and the gray that I used in the tomb. When painting plaster, you'll need to add water to make the colors soak in and blend, so your mountain will get really heavy and weak again. Be sure to monitor for little bits of plaster and paint that start rubbing off of your paintbrush. You'll need to stop and let your plaster dry a bit. If you keep going, your splats are going to come off. I'm going to let the paint dry completely and then spray it with matte finish to help seal it. More importantly, this will help keep my splats secured. Once it's dry, you can totally be done if you wish, but we are taking this mountain a step further. I want my Jesus figure to stand on top of the mountain. To do this, I'm going to grab my saran or plastic wrap again, and I'm going to grab a tube of silicone caulk, a circle of plastic that would have gone in the trash, and my Jesus figure. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a huge blob of caulk on top of my saran wrap, and then I'm setting my plastic circle on top of it, pushing it down a little, and I'm letting this dry completely. I know this looks odd, but it is purposeful. Stay with me. I'm going to add more caulk around the sides just to help secure it. Once all of the caulk is dry, I'm going to add a blob of caulk on top of my circle. Add a layer of plastic or saran wrap on top, and then I'm going to take my Jesus piece and I'm going to press down, and I'm going to leave the figure in as it sets. Once the caulk is dry, I'm going to remove all of the plastic wrap. The last step is to cover up this plastic caulk stand that we just made with some more caulk. But we're going to cover the caulk. What I'm going to do is add a stream of caulk on the side and then wrap snow fluff around it. Once the caulk dries, your snow fluff is going to be attached. You can add additional snow fluff and make any kind of cloudy shape that you want. And now your background mountain will be ready for your display. And again, the best part of our little stand is that it comes off and you can incorporate your mountain background into any other display that you choose.